When it comes to data and digital acceleration, companies are facing significant challenges. My co-host Sarah and I are here to help you tackle them. We're broadcasting live from SAP Now in Brussels, and in today's episode of SAP BeLux Talks, we'll talk to Manos Raptopoulos. Welcome.
Thank you very much, Thomas. Great to be with you. Hello, Sarah.
Thank you. Hello.
Manos, you're president for SAP's newly created EMA region, EMA1, if I understood correctly. You're active all over Europe, but how would you describe the Belgian market as we're here in Brussels today?
Yeah, I think the Belgian market is very typical of what we see in Europe. It's a very dynamic market, very well influenced by all the trends that we see happening around us. And it's very central to us because also us being a European company and we have the head of the European Union here, a lot of legislation gets started here, and it's also a great customer of ours, the European Union. So speaking mostly about the part of the business that is private sector, we see a lot of dynamism in the Belgian market. We were having discussions earlier today with customers, and we see a lot of traction in the supply chain space. All customers are trying to understand how they can better manage their supply chains, given the disruptions that we unfortunately have. Geopolitical or other type of disruption is affecting them. And also the emergence of AI is giving a different and new spin to how they want to manage their business. So dynamic market, very big focus on creating business value, and I would say the business case, because we're talking about a mature part of our markets in general, especially in Europe, having the right business case is super important to them.
Yeah, one of those Belgian companies who have an interesting business case is BeLux.
Yes, indeed, and actually BeLux has actually deployed artificial intelligence. They are deploying it in a space which is, let's say, the HR space. And in that context, they try to find which is the right expert, developing the right profiles in order to make sure they attract the right talent. So it's a very, very interesting case for us here in Belgium.
Yeah, and you mentioned AI, which is the hot topic of 2024. What is the impact of AI on the relevance and also on the growth of SAP?
Yes, so it is very interesting, and maybe if I can take a little bit of a provocative view to the AI topic, if I may. So when we started by ChatGPT, actually a couple of years ago, making that mainstream, we all thought, and it's very true, that AI is going to fundamentally change the way we work and the way we interact in the everyday life, but also in the business world. But I think it was overhyped in a way. Generative AI is not new, first and foremost. It's a field that exists since Second World War, basically, and it keeps evolving, and it keeps plateauing and then grows again. Mm-hmm. But generative AI was a huge disruption into that AI story. But if you look at it from an enterprise perspective, what customers really want to have is they want to have business value. Back to the point that I was talking previously in the Belgian market, it's something that we see. It is not about just having a cool search engine or generative text coming out of it's okay. What does it do to my business? How can I cut costs? How can I automate more? And this is where we come in as SAP. And I believe that this year is a year, I wouldn't say of disillusionment for AI, but it's definitely a year that gravity comes back to place in terms of expectations. And what we try to do from an SAP perspective is actually deliver those business cases, one business case at a time, one business process at a time, that collectively, if you add them together, they are going to bring a substantial saving or a substantial advantage to the business that are using it. Now, getting a little bit on the broader picture, there are studies for what the impact of AI, generative AI specifically, is going to be. You're probably aware of the Morgan Stanley study that talks about an impact between 2.4 to 4.1 trillion US dollars at a global level. The numbers are quite staggering. It's not about, I won't debate if it is 4 or if it's 2, but it is going to be substantial, right? It's the 4 trillion is a kind of the GDP of Germany, and it's we can understand the impact it may have. But as every technology, it creates a dichotomy, if I can say. You adopt it in the right way, and you get an advantage. If you don't adopt it, you get on the other side of the fence, and you get a disadvantage. So what we're trying to say to customers is that they need to get on board soonest possible. SAP, we believe, is a very reliable partner in order to do that with us. in order to start experimenting first about the benefits, and then as this grows, they don't miss the wave.
And what are typical business use cases you try to have or try to implement with your customers then?
So there are different approaches into that we're trying to take. The major approach, the mainstream approach, is what we call embedded AI, which actually cuts across the different processes that we have within SAP. It can be from reading an invoice, taking a photograph, enriching the data, posting it automatically into the system, and then starting the rest of the processes. It could be, from an HR point of view, what we were saying below: give me a description of this particular profile, and I can use that profile in order to post it on LinkedIn, and then do a hierarchy or do a sorting of the CVs that I receive so that I automate faster and I have the most relevant higher in the hierarchy. It can be supply chain related. As I mentioned, a lot of traction there because customers are looking for algorithms to predict what is going to happen, but most importantly, automate the outcomes when the prediction happens, because there is so much you can do with planning. At some point, disruption just happens and you have to react quickly. So what automation can you put there in terms of AI in order to make that reaction in a fast way? So from finance to supply chain to HR, there is a lot of use cases that we try to embed. By the end of this year, we're going to have about 100 already part of our product, of our core offering. And we are working together with customers in order to develop the vertical cases, the ones that are more relevant to their specific industry. And we have formed a team, we call it the Kaya project internally, where we actually invest in order, if a customer has a business case, we invest, we develop it together, and if we see repeatability, we take it as part of the offering. And that's how we are going to build also an industry flavor into each of the AI use cases.
Yeah, and what is the role of Joule, your AI co-pilot?
Well, yes, that's a good one. Joule is a digital assistant, people know Copilot from Microsoft or Gemini from Google, etc. This is our digital assistant, Joule. What we believe is a differentiator in Joule is that it has the business context. It's not just the data. It's about, as I mentioned before, let me take the example of an invoice. An invoice is not just a series of numbers. It connects to a specific delivery. The delivery connects to specific line items, the line items to delivery dates, to quality. If you don't have all these items, you shouldn't pay the invoice, for instance, right? So Joule is going to have that context, and it can understand if you're talking about supply chain, if you're talking about finance, or if you're talking about HR, and it's going to contextualize the answer depending on what the user is seeing at that level. That is one element. The other element is that it is open as an architecture. We already announced that Joule is collaborating. It's actually interfacing seamlessly with Microsoft Copilot. That means that, for example, you're in a team session and you want to know, you're conversing with a colleague, with your manager, and you want to know what has been the sales of that region or the other region across a product line. You write it down in natural language. It doesn't matter that it is on Teams. Copilot will invoke Joule. The result will come seamlessly without the end user understanding or realizing that there is something else going on in the background. The third element that we believe is also quite transformational is that it is going to probably most likely change the way we interact with business systems like SAP. Up to now, you had to go through a menu, basically, to maybe get a report, or you were having a dashboard. It's going to become much more intuitive than that. So higher level executives in any company, they wouldn't rely on reports being fetched from a system, but they could ask, and they could ask in natural language, and the report would come, or the result would be presentable to them. And we believe that this actually changes a lot the level of interaction and the accessibility of a system like SAP.
Okay, you're talking about how it is now or how it will be very soon, I guess. But let's say we'll meet in 3 years from now. What will have happened?
Well, probably not in a good space. Whatever I say, and I appreciate this is recorded, probably I'm going to fall short or I'm going to fall away. But I believe that in 3 years from now, we will have prevalence of that model that I just described, more intuitively accessed systems, better quality of information. Human decision is always going to be central to everything that is done, especially in a business context like the one that we are operating in. But we will have data points, well-informed data points coming from small AI applications that are going to be informing those decisions. Again, I believe that for SAP, there's going to be probably another space, because as customers move their data on the cloud, and as SAP is investing on AI to train AI on those models, we're going to have some pretty accurate descriptions or outcomes out of that, because it is known that the more data you have, the more likely is that your AI is more accurate and does not hallucinate, as they say, right? So this is going to be a space that probably for SAP is going to be a little bit unique, because looking at how much data we touch on an everyday business, that is going to be a huge area of investment for us. And what we call customer data cloud is going to become a much more central part of our offering. So our customers will be it will be much easier for them to access those data and to actually produce tangible business outcomes. So another area that goes into that direction, and again, I'm not sure how close I'm going to fall, is that because of what I just mentioned, SAP will have a very good idea of what customers are using and how their processes measure up against their peers in the specific industry. So imagine a situation 3 years' time from now that the customer is coming to SAP, or is SAP's proactively sharing, you could improve your cash flow by 5% because we understand that you didn't use that process, and your peer group says that probably if you do that, then you're going to gain this advantage. Extrapolate that to supply chain, extrapolate that to other processes, and that's going to be quite unique, I would say. Mm-hmm. So I'm not sure how accurate those are going to be, but this is kind of directionally where I see things going.
Yeah, and when we talk about SAP, already 77% of the world revenues touches somewhere in an SAP system. Is there even still room to grow?
Yeah, I mean, consider those areas that we just talked about artificial intelligence, prevalence of data, how you can use those data in order to do decisions. What I mentioned about the data space is going to become an area which is going to be more and more relevant for customers, and I believe there is room to grow there. There is significant room to grow in what we call the customer experience space. Mm-hmm. Actually, as a company, we are bringing back the concept of the data and the business suite, as we call it, which means if you're a customer and you're already using a part of the suite, we want to give you incentive to grow that even further. In the customer experience space, we believe we have as much room to grow as we have grown over the last, 20, 30 years. So there is significant growth there, and for us, it's a kind of a natural space because there is no customer satisfaction if you don't deliver the right product at the right time, at the right quality, which is basically a supply chain function. Having this connection between your customer experience and supply chain is actually a very lucrative idea and space. So we believe that there are many areas, be it data, supply chain, customer experience. Yeah, there is definitely growth and opportunity.
All right, and I hope you will achieve those goals. Manos, Raptopoulos, thank you for passing by in our studio.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you.